much, Nitya, and thank you everyone who's connected. Um, Give me one second. Thank you everyone who's connected and listening to the stories of the youth, because I think everyone has a really different story, and it's amazing how you can connect to one more closely depending on your journey, right? And it's also amazing to hear Journey and Hasik and all these super young people acting from a really young age. And I think of myself when I was 12 or 14 or 16, and I can't imagine doing all the amazing work you guys are doing. So congratulations. So, to talk a little bit about how I started getting involved in climate action and ocean activism, I want to talk about how I realized the problem was huge and there was an urgent need to address it. It was one week where school in Mexico was canceled. We were all staying at home, and I decided to watch every possible documentary on the Ocean Conservancy and climate action. And when I was done, I realized now I have all this information. I can't believe on one side I didn't know about this, and on the other I have all this information. What am I gonna do about it? I can't just sit here in my house like nothing happened. Right? This week was like the turning point in my career as an ocean advocate. And I think it was one phrase specifically for a documentary where the people who were making the documentary asked this older guy, like, hey, as a finishing sentence, just give advice to the youth. And he said, do everything you can, because when you reach my age, and if you feel like you didn't do everything that was in your hands, you're gonna feel a lot of regret. So that was the phrase that struck me the most, and that was the moment I decided to get involved in my school's eco club. So that was my first approach. I decided to join this environmental club in Ibero called Cambio, and through it, I had the connection with Plastic Oceans. I helped organize a little forum in my university, and that's how I started getting involved. And 6 months later, I was collaborating with Plastic Oceans Mexico as their special events coordinator. Through my school also is how I met the pop movement when we invited them to participate in a congress we organized. And after meeting them, I had the chance to go with our group of Cambio to represent our projects in the festival of youth projects. And that's how I started getting more and more involved. So, what I want to say with this message is how every one little thing led to another. So, I think my three key points of this story is everything is made by little steps. It's not one big step one day to another that you become an advocate, or one day to another that you're changing the world. It's little steps that you can't be afraid to take. On the other side, don't be afraid to approach people who are already involved. There are people who really need the help and really want the help, and you'll always be welcome to join the movement. And I think one of the most important ones is don't look away from things that make you uncomfortable. Act on them. It's easier to, for example, you're scrolling on social media and you see a video of a turtle being strangled by a net. It's easier to scroll down and forget you ever saw it. But it's better to learn about what's happening. Why is this turtle like this? Why is there so much trash in the ocean? What's happening? And that way, little by little, you start getting more motivated to get involved. So now that I've talked about how we got involved in ocean activism, I want to talk a little bit more about the water crisis in Mexico. Because as Danny was saying, Mexico is one of the Mexico cities specifically. It's one of the cities that's at most risk. They expect that in less than 30 years, we're gonna run out of water. I'm 24, so I think about my baby cousins, and by the time they're my age, the situation is going to be much worse. So I can't imagine them living in such a stressful situation where they'll turn on the faucet and they won't have running water, or they'll know about this approaching day zero, and this will cause them so much pain and so much regret of not acting before. So in Mexico, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, we actually had a week without water because there were some problems in our water system. And I think that was my first insight to the gravity of the issue. That was when I really realized, like, this is a real problem. We are not often exposed to it because we live in this big city where we always get water. But that's when I realized, like, it's time to act. We can't really just stay sitting there and not do anything about it. And that's when I started thinking back a little and saying, as a chemical engineer, throughout the university, we learned to calculate different processes. And for all these processes, we would calculate how much cooling water was needed, right? So we would get this enormous amounts of of liters of water that would be needed for a simple process. And I never gave it a second thought until that day came, right? So I would get like the result of the calculation we were making, and I never really thought about what that meant. You know, we were calculating for one product for a production of one day, and the amount of water was impressive. So that's when I started thinking about like, hey, this is a lot of water, you know, everything we have is has water contained in it, right? So a chocolate, a soda, the clothes you wear, everything. So I think that's when it really started to hit me that the importance of consuming responsibly and consuming less are not only closely attached to our carbon footprint, but they're also really attached to our water footprint, which is im- super important that we start addressing now. Because if we fail to do so, this precious resource keep will keep disappearing from many places, and the people who will suffer at first will be the ones with the least resources. So this is, as well as climate justice and climate change, it's unfair, right? So as we stand from a point of privilege, living in cities, living having access to the internet, having access to all this information, we can't give it for granted. We need to use this power to demand change. So I hope you use this little intro to the subject for three things. For one, starting consuming responsibly and learning about how much water is contained in every little product that you have. On the other is learning more about the issue. It's really interesting, and the more you learn about, the more motivated you are to act, and also to spread the word. And my last is to demand proper water management, because most of the issues are closely related to how the water is managed and not only to how much water we have. So that would be all. Thank you so much.